and she's worked at various levels with multinational organizations. She's an internationally certified game designer, technical trainer, and facilitator. Ami is passionate about creating holistic training processes, and she thoroughly enjoys working in the space of gamified learning. I love that term. Hamani Chandarkar, her colleague, is a management graduate and a seasoned professional in the areas of educational game design, coaching, and she's a behavioral skills facilitator as well. She's worked in both manufacturing and service sectors, as well as leading her own consulting firm. She's also led a number of treks in the Himalayas, and that's where we're going to be going today. Both women are award winners in their fields. They both received several management awards. So the other person who's with us today is Chuck Needleman. And Chuck is an old friend. Chuck and I worked on a Marriott project together, which resulted in a simulation game, which we called Toy Rom. And some of you have already figured out where the name came from. Chuck has been in the field for 35 years. He's got an experience as an organizational development consultant. He's a facilitator par excellence. He's an instructional designer, a coach, and a manager. In addition to the private sector work that he's done, he has an even wider array of government or public agencies that he's worked for, many of them in the foreign affairs area. He's also a Vietnam veteran, a combat veteran, and a returned Peace Corps volunteer who spent time in Liberia. Chuck served on the board of North American Simulation and Gaming Association for 12 years, and he chaired the 2009 conference, NASAGA conference, which was in Washington, D.C. It was a great conference, Chuck. It was really good. It was actually through NASAGA that Chuck and Hamani and Ami met, but that's their story to tell. And so I'm going to turn it over to them now to take us to the Himalayas and to Mount Everest.
Thank you, Sandy, for the wonderful introduction. I would like Himani to share her screen.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Whichever part of the world you are, I wish to make your next 90 minutes awesome. We are so glad to have you all over here. And we are excited to share with you about our journey of taking everyone to the top of the Everest. While they were struggling not at 8,000 meters altitude, but 8.8 meters altitude, not at minus 30 degrees Celsius, but somewhere close to 13 degrees Celsius, where only gears they were thinking about or worried was a cozy throw next to them or a pajama set. Confused, right? It is because when we first developed this simulation, it was taking them virtually to the top of the Everest. When I say we develop, let me introduce you to the team who we are. Our formal introduction, you got to know from Sandy that I am Ami and we have Himani over here and we are the co-founders of ETU 360. But that's not that interesting. Let me share a fun story and I'm very sure that is going to be interesting for you. I have named this story as Happy Ending. It's a story about true work romance, I would say. When I first met Rohit and Himani, you can see both of them on the screen, I was struggling with idea of whether to get out of a vicious cycle of perfect career or a job. I call it a miserable marriage of a born entrepreneur with society who expects her to stay in the marriage even when she knew she secretly loved somebody else. This is about 10 years back when the word startup or entrepreneurship wasn't a big buzz or a hashtag. And finally, I lost and had fallen into the rat race. Rat race, I would say, of corporate journey. During this race, I worked with various multinationals, and each year into the job, apart from gaining experience of people development, it also gave me assurance, a strong feeling of going back to my secret lover, my mentors, Himani and Rohit, who in those 10 years were thriving in their organization acumen, taking participants actually to Himalayas and doing exciting experiential outbound. Well, we need another 3 to 4 sessions if I have to tell you about Himani's trekking experiences and how she survived the most dangerous Chadar trek. But that I think we can do some other time. By the way, I missed introducing you, Rohit. He's not just our partner in E2 360, he's also Himani's life partner, a professional sports person. And those of you who are interested in cricket, I must say he is an official mentor and coach for IPL players. It's a premier league that happens in India, and Indians are crazy about that. Well, he handles the most critical part in the venture, being the head of the critics committee, especially when it comes to suggestions about the new simulations or something that we try and change in the Mission Everest simulation. Lol, that's not the case. While I and Himani are the game designers, on the other hand, he is the one who has actually have the experience of being on the field. His experience as a sports person and as in somebody who is actually have been on the mountain plays a very important role. His experience and his eye for detail is what helps in making a simulation very similar to real life. Let me come back to my story, which I started in the beginning, and let me bring it to an end, why I call it a happy ending. So after 10 long years, we finally understood it's not a one-sided love story. Himani and Rohit too shared the same bond for me, and we all had a common desire for giving learning in India a new avatar, making learning more fun and experiential, yet more impactful. At a time when entire world stood still and everybody was covered with, I would say, bizarre of masks, sanitizers, and dozens of medicines, everyone was chained to their desk, trying to balance between the taxing corporate job and household chores, looking for an escape from realities when we started EU 360. And the most important part, in Bollywood movies, they say the hero's entry, I would say the lead actor's entry, they keep a little secret. And that's what I would say for Chuck. Chuck being the one hero in this story, you will have to wait a little while for his introduction because his entry in this movie is yet to be there. You heard me a lot talking about simulations and mountains, but I think we all of us would like to know what got you here. Is it your love for simulation and the excitement for how Mount Everest, why Mount Everest, or your love for simulations, or both? What got you over here? And for that, I would like you to grab your cell phones quickly and on your browser. If you are using an Android phone, quickly open your Chrome, or if you're using your iPhone, open your Safari and type www.menti.com. Grab your cell phone and type www.menti.com. You can see the instructions on the screen as well. Once you type it, quickly send a thumbs up in the chat box or just unmute and let us know if in case you are facing any issue. And if not, you will see a pop-up. You can see a screenshot over here on the screen of Mentimeter. It will ask you to enter a code. I hope everybody is with me and they have grabbed their cell phone and have this window open on their phone. Mentimeter is what we would like you to open right now. Once you open Mentimeter, it will ask you for a joining code. The code is 61330422. You can see it on the screen. It's 61330422. If any of you is facing issue with opening Mentimeter, don't worry. We have Zoom chat box. You can write your answer over here. We would like to know what got you here. Your love for mountains, your love for simulation, both, or something else, whatever it is. Quickly share your answer either in the Menti application or on the chat box. Let us see. Okay, we already have, yeah, we already have a lot of inputs over here. So we can see somebody's interested in gamification. Some lot of people wants to know more about simulation. Yeah, we are excited to know that we all share the same interest. I'm interested in all things that is intercultural. Wow. All right. So Barb stayed in India for 10 years, and that's what got Barb over here. Barb, I'm so glad you were here in India. Always looking for new games and simulation, catching up with theater team. Mhm. All right. We'll wait for another 10 seconds. Nature is what got you over here. Okay. Okay. Sandy says wanting to catch up on using current technology for simulation games. Okay. Topic and interest in the service. My love for simulation. All right. So I see a lot of you have written simulations got you here. Let me go back to the presentation. Uh, be it mountains, be it nature or simulation, I say both are integral part of our lives. And yes, we do love both. But why simulations? When it comes to learning, do you really feel simulations play an important role? I would like to know about your views. Think of a simulation that you personally have experienced, and what is it that you still remember about the simulation? What was that exciting part? Please write down your answer in the chat box over here. We would love to read about that. What is it that you still remember about the simulation? Or why do you feel simulations play an important role in a participant's learning journey? Whether they are similar to a normal training program, or do they have a different impact on the entire experience? Okay, Susan says it touches your emotions. Okay, so Cookie had experienced it in Netherlands. It's buffer. I think Chuck even told us about it, and he also appreciates that simulation. New perspective, yeah, it changed the way. Same. It really changed the way we started thinking about the learning experience. Wonderful. And here I read somebody said it gives a safe space, a safe environment, and I'll come back to that point. Well, uh, exactly as you said, it gives a safe space. I would like to share why we feel simulation is very important. What is our answer? And that you will see in the next slide. There's a beautiful video which gives our answer. Exactly. I would say before setting foot in the real world, pilots, military professionals, or you take any technical sector, engineers or disaster management team, any technical person, I would say go through intense simulation to learn everything from basic skills to how to respond to crisis situation. Unlike corporate world, where learning comes after losing out on resources. When I say resources, it could be anything. Could be result, it could be relations, it could be your time, your energy, and of course, money. Mistakes at work can cost a lot of things. So we decided why not create a safe space to learn from mistakes and give participants a safe space to learn from their mistakes. This safe space where people learn by doing and by experiencing is what we love the most about the simulation. So this was our journey, how we started using simulations in our training programs, in our learning journey, how we started our venture EDU 360. But if you want to know more about why Mission Everest, what is Mission Everest, and how it connects and how it plays an important role in the intercultural journey, you will have to listen to the rest part of the story by Himani. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ami. And yes, as Ami very rightly said, we are in love with simulations. We are in love with the mountains, with the Himalayas. But pre-pandemic, our experience with simulations as well as the mountains has all been real, has all been in the physical environment. And so were our simulations as well. But then the pandemic struck. And when the pandemic struck, we were all stuck. We were all stuck in and confined to the four walls of our homes. And we were neither doing any simulations, we were nor taking people to the mountains. And I and Ami were thinking, what should we do about it? And that's when one of our clients called us up and he said, how wonderful it would have been if we could have gone to the mountains with you virtually. And let me tell you, this was our Eureka moment. And we felt, yes, why not? Why not try and make a simulation which takes people to the mountains virtually? And when we thought of taking people to the mountains virtually, that's when we thought that if it has to be virtual, why compromise on the mountain? Let's pick the most ambitious mountain. And that was taking people to the top of Everest. And yes, when we started building the simulation, we started building it with a purpose. So now the story behind Mission Everest, that's what I'm going to share with you over here. When the pandemic struck and we were in our homes, one of our clients came up with an objective. They wanted to train their teams. They had certain specific learning objectives. They wanted their team to have a proactive attitude, have the passion to succeed. How do they have ease of business? How do they communicate effectively for that? How do they have effective execution? And how do they handle diversity in their team? This was a group of young leaders whom we were supposed to train. And we felt that why not build a simulation around an Everest climb where we take these teams on a virtual Everest climb and they experience all of these learnings on the way. So we thought of doing this, and for that, we had to come up with a simulation which would be a hybrid one, having a combination of both tactical aspects as well as social aspects. So when you talk about an Everest climb, yes, there are data points involved. So we had data dependencies, right from how much oxygen they carry on the climb to how does weather impact their climb. So there were certain data points which made the simulation partially tactical. And at the same time, yes, there were a lot of social processes involved because it was not only about the data points, but how did the team interact with each other during the simulation? How did they communicate? How did they negotiate? How did they handle diverse opinions and views? And that's what we thought of making a combination simulation having both tactical and social elements. One thing which we had was the objectives of the simulation. The second thing which was there was the objective in the simulation. And the objective in the simulation was not just climbing Everest. It was not just reaching to the top of Everest. It was about reaching the summit of Everest with a healthy team. And the aim was to maximize their health score. And each of the challenges that were designed in the simulation helped them to actually achieve that. At certain points of time, yes, they earned a health score. At certain points of time, if they did not work together effectively in a team, they would lose out on health points. And so the aim was not just reaching the summit of Everest, but to reach the summit with a healthy team. And to do that, yes, we had an entire team with a lot of subject matter experts. So there were roles defined. And in Mission Everest, the simulation, we have six major roles. In these six major roles, yes, we have a weather expert, we have an acclimatization expert, we have an oxygen expert, someone who handles cold emergencies, medicines, ice falls, and avalanches. If we have people in this Zoom room today who are climbers, who like to go to the mountains, I'm sure you connect with these words. And yes, so we have all these roles And a lot of people who have been through this simulation, they have never climbed mountains. And for them, these are all new words, new terminologies. And so it makes it all the more challenging for them. They have to develop the expertise first and then communicate with their teams, contribute to the teams to take them to the summit. Once the roles were defined, yes, we had to come up with events during the entire simulation. So we have certain planned events, we have certain chance events, we have certain ad hoc events. So when it comes to planned events, of course, there are events like the weather forecast. And anybody who climbs mountains would know that to climb a mountain like Everest, the most crucial criteria, crucial parameter which plays a role is the jet stream. It's the wind velocity. And so we have certain planned events throughout the simulation which impact the outcomes of based on the decisions that the teams take. But then there are certain chance events. These chance events are really luck-based events. So we have used the spin wheel, the online spin wheel, to swap roles. And we have seen how people quickly adapt to new roles. Someone who is handling an oxygen expertise suddenly now has to handle a medicine expertise. And that happens through a chance event. And occasionally we have also had ad hoc events. That is when spontaneously as facilitators, we have fine-tune the events or change the challenges. It could be team member swaps. So if there are multiple teams climbing Everest together, we have swapped members from one team to the other and seen how they react to it. If it's a leader who is getting swapped, how is he able to connect to the team when he or she goes into the new team? Of course, we went through a lot of playtesting initially, of course, a lot of talking through within our team, then a lot of walking through within our team. And then we came up with our round one of the simulation, wherein we had some members from our client's end and some members from our team going through it. All these reiterations which we were doing, it gave us an opportunity to plug the holes, to make it stronger in the experience part. And then finally, we had a dress rehearsal where we had an intact team coming in, and they were all our target audience. I would still say, although we have taken up close to 1,000 people on this virtual Everest climb by now, it is still a work in progress and the simulation is still evolving. And each time we come up with something new. And the journey, this Everest climb of creating an Everest simulation has been nothing short of an Everest climb for us, because it has been full of challenges which we had to tackle. And being a virtual climb, it was all the more challenging. So if you look at this, yes, what are the challenges that we faced? The communication platform. Yes, initially we had connectivity issues, people logging in from different parts of the world. We tried Zoom, we tried WebEx. At times we struggled with WebEx. Finally, we figured out Zoom is the best. So that was the initial struggle that we faced. We also struggled with the preparatory info for the participants. Earlier, we used to bombard the participants with a lot of information before the simulation. It became overwhelming for the participants. In fact, for some, it became intimidating. And we realized we need to work on that. We started making it more concise. The timing when it needs to be sent was changed. We moved from text-based information to video-based information to make it easier for them to comprehend. And that brought things more on track. It also helped the participants to acclimatize with the entire virtual climb as well. Technology has been a boon as well as a bane for us. We have used multiple platforms. So somebody in their expectations had put up that they want to know what all technology can be used in simulations. Let me tell you, we were also very excited to use a lot of technology. And when we used a lot of it, we realized that some people get stuck with the technology. And instead of learning from the simulation, they are more focused on how do I handle this Facebook thing? How do I scan a QR code? So yes, at times technology has been a boon for us, and in groups where adapting to change has been an objective, yes, this is something which has come across as an objective, learning objective. But yes, we have also tried to keep it simple so that technology does not become a bane for us. Virtual simulations, one challenge which, yes, is always faced is attention span, because we tend to multitask when we are in a Zoom room. We have our mobile phone accessible, We have something going on in the background. So how do we hold the attention span? And that's why we have 6 roles. That's why we have challenges which are very fast paced. They have very little time to actually come up with the responses. And you don't know which challenge is going to come up when. When are you going to face a cold emergency? When would you need medicines? When are you going to fall short of oxygen? And so each of the subject matter experts have to be alert throughout the simulation, because they certainly don't want their team to suffer because they were not around. And that holds their attention span. One more thing which we realized while conducting virtual simulations is the mediums of communication used within the team. So we have used Zoom. We have also used WhatsApp for internal team discussions. But as soon as someone opens a WhatsApp, he or she will start seeing other messages. And again, that compromises on the attention span. So now we have also built our own simulation platform so that all the communication happens in one place and people are able to focus on it. One thing which was a very, initially we felt we have a very bright idea, which turned out to be a disaster, was using Google Earth. We thought, let's take people on an Everest climb, let's make it immersive, let's use Google Earth and take them through all the satellite pictures of Everest. We even tried it with a client, and it was disastrous because Google Earth takes up a lot of bandwidth, and different people at different locations. Like right now, we have people, we are here in India, we have someone from Italy, we have someone from US, we have someone from Switzerland, and yes, the bandwidth played a havoc, and we realized we cannot use Google Earth in this simulation. But at the same time, we wanted to make it immersive. We wanted people to sit back in their homes on a comfortable chair, see an avalanche approaching them, and still be safe. Something just like this.
We're having lunch at Camp 1 and one avalanche after the other. This one is almost approaching Camp 1. I can hear it from something from... हाँ? Camp 1 में आ गया क्या? Massive.
And this is real footage from Camp 1 of the Everest climb. And that is what we felt, we need something like this to make the simulation more immersive. But where do we get this from? And at times when you are searching for something, serendipity strikes. And that's exactly what happened with us. Just the way you are attending a webinar right now, we happen to attend a webinar of an Everest climber. An Everest climber who climbed the Everest in 2019 at the age of 50. And when we attended the webinar, this was a person whom we did not know at all. His name is Aditya Gupta. He has also written a book, 7 Lessons from Everest. You can see this book. Okay, because of the background, you can't see much in my hand, but yes, it's a huge book, wherein he captures his lessons from Everest. But when we connected with him, he was extremely generous. We asked him for a few pictures and a video clips. He sent us hundreds of pictures and a lot of video clips from his real climb with a message: use as many as you want in as many projects as you want. Enjoy Everest. And we realized that, yes, there was a lot of humility and generosity which came in from this Everest climber, and we had to make the best use of it. We connected with him, and yes, it was not just restricted to the pictures and the videos that he shared. He shared a lot of experiences also. We took a lot of insights from him to make the simulation more immersive, more realistic, build the scenarios which are which feel like real life, so that the participants, when they go through the simulation, they actually feel they are on Everest. And that's when Mission Everest was created. It was ready to be launched. And we took quite a few people in India through this simulation. And that's when I got a message from Nasaga. I've been to Nasaga in 2016 at Bloomington to present over there. But this time around, I received a message from Nasaga that we are going to do a virtual event that was back in 2020. And I and Ami decided, yes, this is the time to again participate in Nasaga. Let's send our proposal for Mission Everest. And we were delighted to again get selected at Nasaga. And yes, this was the second point of time in our lives where serendipity struck. And here comes the introduction of the hero. Here's when we met Chuck, because Chuck happened to be the producer of our event, our 90 minutes event, or I would say a speed climb of Everest, where we took participants of Nasaga on an Everest climb. And he was there with us throughout the 90 minutes. And that's where our journey with him started. That's where we realized that, yes, Mission Everest can be used as a tool for intercultural collaboration. We have Chuck with us over here. Chuck, I would like you to throw some light on this. So I hand it over to you.
Good. So I want to let you know, at previous sessions, we've had people after that first event, that video, have gone and gotten their stocking caps and their parkas. And they're sitting in a room to put those on to be more involved in the simulation. That's how it's touched people. That's how it's been immersive when people have seen it. But let me just start very, very quickly. This is an opportunity for me to say it's good to be with you. Seeing old colleagues and friends like Sandy Fowler and Carolyn Reifeld, and makes me think of my good friend Judy Bloom, who I was very involved with simulations, running the 2009 conference. That was wonderful. And Sandy came to that one. I got to see her there. That was wonderful. A little bit of history goes back. Somebody mentioned in the chat, Banga. So this is little known. It was actually a small village in Liberia that I traveled through often, but it was spelled G-B-R-A-N-G-A. And Tiagi took and made that simulation and named it Banga. But that was the village. He was working at Cuddington College in Liberia at the time. So I wasn't there when he was there. Other little known fact is Judy Bloom was also a Peace Corps volunteer in Liberia. She was a school teacher. So we all had that together. My thanks years ago from Nasaga, we ran a simulation at Peace Corps around resiliency. We needed an audience to test this. We called on CIATAR people and they filled the room one evening from between 7 and 9 o'clock in the middle of the week in Washington, D.C. at Peace Corps headquarters. It was wonderful. So I've been involved with simulations, some good ones, some wonderful ones, like Bafa, and a number of them. So I know when I see a good simulation, and I had the opportunity at the Nasaga conference in 2020. It's actually October. It was supposed to be in Montreal. It was supposed to be live. The pandemic swept us away. We did it online. I was on the board. Actually, I was on the board for 12 years. I was assigned to work with Ami and Hamini to support them. So you can already experience how organized they are, right? They really have their act together. They're very detail oriented when it comes to any of the work they do. They're passionate about their work. So the reality was I didn't have to do much to support them except to say hello. I think I may have introduced them and added a little bit of facilitation, but I was taken with this simulation because I saw that it was flexible, it was broad. There were so many ways you could use this simulation, including if you're an OD practitioner, in particular, DEI. If you put people together in teams with different backgrounds and ask them to work together, it's magical opposed to sitting in a room and talking about subjects, but ask them to do some work together. And that's what this simulation does. It applies to leadership, all kinds of things, making decisions. So I was involved with them. I was taken by the metaphor that they took the largest mountain in the world that everybody knows about, and the challenge of getting up it but getting up it, as Hamini said, um, healthy, in a healthy way. How do you do that? Lots of decisions, critical decisions, great metaphor for life. I was taken by it and thought, geez, I was doing work with my good friend, Paul Sully, who was a country director for Peace Corps in Jamaica. I'd been running retreats for 4 years for them. And I just said, perhaps would you be interested in running this with a Jamaican group in Jamaica? And they were open to it. Okay. There's many of all these faces from Jamaica that they put up on the screen now. And they said yes. And I talked to my friend Paul, and he said yes. And in any event, we brought it together. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. And it applied to, and it was so cool. Here we have Hamini and Ami in India. We had a Jamaican staff that was very, very diverse. There was some Americans on the staff, and here I am in the United States, and we're running a simulation. I mean, how cool is that? We're in like 3 different places and running a simulation. So I became very passionate and began working with Hamini and Ami. And I think that's how, I pulled out all the people that I knew, and we connected with them. And that's how we connected with Sandy, who I think also saw the value in the simulation kind of going forward. So taking to that point, I've run it with them a few different times, including a whole group of outward bound folks that, are out in the woods doing interesting things on a ropes course. If you've seen ropes courses, that is also kind of fun and is a good metaphor. So that being said, I'm excited to be with you today. I'm excited that we're running. We give you a taste of this simulation, and you all have responded, and you're online. So I think at this point, I turn it back over. Caroline, I think we wanted to open it up perhaps for questions, comments, and a little bit more maybe of the simulation.
Ami and Himani, are you going to show us, do you have a video clip to show us? Is that correct?
Yes, Himani's on mute. She was saying something. Himani, you are on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. So yes, we have the video, we have the process yet to share. But just in case, as Chuck said, are there any questions which you would like us to answer right now, or should I move on?
Will we be running the simulation? I thought the meeting was that we will actually execute the simulation. I didn't know meeting was about talking about the simulation. Sorry, my misunderstanding.
Yes, so the simulation as such is a 3-hour simulation. It takes, so I'll tell you about the process. So running it in a 1.5-hour session, it would actually not do justice to the experience. And so we will show you a glimpse of it through a video clip, as well as make you understand what is the process. So if you look at this, yes, during the simulation, we take people from the base camp through the Khumbu ice fall, which is one of the most treacherous parts of the climb, the Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. We go to Camp 4, which is supposed to be the dead zone, and then of course the summit of Everest. And yes, we need to translate the real life situation into gaming elements, play the game, but not stop there. We need to get into the debriefing part as well, because that is the heart of the simulation. That's where real meaning comes out of a simulation. And what I'm going to take you through now is a quick glimpse, because as you rightly said, yes, there is no substitute to experiencing the simulation. But if we do it in a very short period of time, again, we don't get a feel of it. So what we're going to do is show you a quick video glimpse of how the simulation runs, right from how the facilitator facilitates plus how do teams have discussions during the simulation? How do they reflect on the learning? What do the climbers have to say about the simulation? So this is a 4-minute video clip which will take you through the entire journey, which I'm going to play now. So we are going to start from the base camp, cross the treacherous Kumbu Ice Fall, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, you enter the dead zone in Camp 4, and finally the summit. But let's start from the base camp first. So we'll fly down to Lukla first. So here we go.
You can see how does the base camp look. And that's it. It's snowing.
Going as per a sheet of information that you saw.
Okay.
So we want to quickly calibrate it based on that assumption. If you take a quick minute over, I think we're running out of time, so we'll have to be quick about it. So Kumar, what is the issue with which of these things you want to alter?
No, I just said on the summit day we might need 3 liters per minute is my understanding. Okay, so.
Okay, so then it lasts for how many hours? 6 hours? The bottle lasts?
See over here, Avalanche Busters, cool, you have covered up the negative score. Now just 700 more to go. Snow Leopards, you have moved to 1210 into positive. And now it's time to move ahead to Camp 3. Sorry guys, you had sunny days till now, but now we have a storm here.
Get it, Lynn.
Lynn, you are good
Master
at
of the techno. I think, in terms of different, every one of these conversations we were under a time constraint. So, just being efficient with our time. I think all the conversations we had were valuable, but just trying to, I guess, be focused in those conversations or understand this, and also real life connection, right? I'm in.
Uses of a platform like this, of an experience like this, is actually an alignment of topics. It has huge value in bringing out, fairly deeply ingrained behaviors, which you're seeing, how those, and you're taking people out of the comfort zone. So there are constraints which are there, and that is the time some of these derailing behaviors show up.
Extremely impressed with just the complexity and how many people it put together and how well it was put together.
People are like thinking that online training or online activity is not like as good as we can do physically, but you just prove that thing wrong.
There's all this information to begin with. Kathy and I are not climbers or any of that, and there was so much information that I came into this really worried and overwhelmed, and that I wasn't going to be able to add anything to it. And then you actually got into the game, and it turned out that all it took was good problem solving. And so there was the great fear going into it, and then suddenly, hey, wait, this is really fun. This is great.
It is doing wonders. I've experienced it. It's so I feel very satisfied that my climbing to the Everest, my climbing to the top of Everest has actually done something worthwhile for the business community.
So this is how it spans out, but the process, as I said, the simulation is not a very short simulation. It actually spans out over a week. It starts with a preparatory meet. So what you saw team members discussing with each other. We start off with a preparatory meet. It is a 1-hour session over Zoom where teams come together. Their roles are allocated. So now they have their subject matter expertise. This is a time not only to become aware about their own roles, but also to set their team norms. How are they going to communicate during the simulation, during the virtual climb? How are they going to share information? How are they going to entertain diverse views? So this 1 hour session is basically, I would say, an acclimatization. So any climb needs you to acclimatize, and so does a virtual climb. And that's exactly what this preparatory meet plays the role of. Between the preparatory meet and the simulation, we give them a couple of days. So each of the individuals who are the subject matter experts, they get some time to actually go through their material, they get some videos, they soak into the experience of actually climbing Everest. And so when they come for the simulation, which is a 3-hour long simulation, I would still say it is a speed climb, because climbing Everest in 3 hours is not a joke, but we do take you up the top of the mountain within 3 hours. So in these 3 hours, there are normally 4 teams, 6 members each of them playing a separate role, and they tackle multiple challenges on the way. Resource challenges, weather challenges, health challenges. And based on that, yes, by the time they are at the top of Everest, they have handled diverse opinions, they have made mistakes, they have rejoiced, they have had their set of experiences. And all throughout, each of the teams has their own facilitator, their own expedition leader who guides them on the way with instructions, not answers. And these are the facilitators who are also jotting down observations on the way. Being a virtual simulation, after 3 hours, we don't like to extend the screen time. And beyond that, we also want each individual to reflect individually before doing team reflections. And so we have a 1 day's gap between the simulation and the debriefing session. This is a period of time the individuals have an opportunity to reflect at an individual level and send their reflections to us. And the next day when they come back, we have time for team reflections. Here's where we use technology. We get teams together in breakout rooms. We use tools like Padlets. We use tools like Google Jamboards, where they can capture their team reflections, what they did right during the climb, what they could have done differently. And most importantly, how can they connect this with their real life Everest climbs, the daily Everest that they face. And that's where people start creating actionable agenda, because the main purpose is, out of the simulation, how are you able to connect it with your real scenarios and create some actionable agenda out of it. When we do this, yes, there were certain learning objectives which we have already shared, but over a period of almost 2 years now, we have seen that there are many other learnings which have emerged out of this. So if you were there on a virtual Everest climb, or you had a team to take up the mountain, what learning objectives would you like to address through this? I would like to know your thoughts. Again, if you look at menti.com, where you had logged in, you would again see an option to enter your inputs. If you go to the browser, you already must be seeing an option to enter your learnings from Mission Everest, what you would like to gain out of it. The code is the same, just in case you are asked to enter the code again, 6133-0422. We would like to know, what would you like to learn from a virtual climb? Your wish list. Just in case you face trouble, yeah, we already have something about snow, surviving, work as a team. Strength, willpower, view from the top, awareness of challenges, tools to succeed. . compassion, set common rules. Trust. Staying calm. Conflicts, handling conflicts, prioritization. I'm going to hold this for another 15 seconds.
We have a few inputs in the chat box also.
Yes. Can you just read them out, Ami?
Yeah. So Cookie says trust. Then Karen says remaining calm. I think that's it.
Great. So we see a lot of inputs here, right from diverse opinions, leadership, relationships, strength, decision-making, connections, awareness of challenges, self-awareness, surviving, teamwork, communication. Yes. Let me tell you, this framework of the Everest simulation framework is very flexible, and we have been able to accommodate almost all of these learning elements, which you can see right here on the screen. And so now I'll share what all things beyond the 5 which I showed you earlier have been addressed through the simulation. So if you look at the top, there are these 7 yellow chits. And these are the 7 lessons from Everest, the book which I showed you. And in fact, it covers almost everything that we talked about, right from preparation and passion, how it leads to performance, the power of focus. If you look at Everest, yes, there is a section called the Khumbu Ice Fall, where you have bottomless crevasses, and you cross the crevasses with ladders. And yes, it's about your power of focus. Do you focus on the ladders or do you focus on the crevasses? There is one step at a time. How do you make friends with fear? Time is oxygen. So various elements. And what you see on the screen right now, this is from one of our Everest simulations, and you see some real life connects being put up over here under each of these lessons from Everest. So we have been able to address these 7 lessons through the simulation. Plus, there are many more which have emerged from the participants. So in fact, we have been surprised by the learnings that people have been able to draw out of the simulation. There have been learnings related to leading self, right from adaptability to agility in learning, passion to succeed. Somebody had written self-awareness on menti.com, self-accountability. How do you think innovatively? How do you plan and organize? Because climbing Everest needs a lot of planning. You plan well and you have your oxygen cylinders right up there when you need them at the summit. If you fall short of oxygen, your climb gets null and void. You're going to come back even after reaching Camp 4. So planning and organizing is something which is very critical. When it comes to leading people, yes, we have seen people handling diversity and differences. A lot of collaboration happening. How do you handle mutual respect? How do you maintain equity? And how do you include people in the decision-making process? Communication, conflict management. How do you influence people at the right time? Solving problems, delegating, leading change, decision-making. These are certain aspects when it comes to leading people, which can get addressed through the simulation. And then working in teams, sharing responsibility as well as rewards. How do you contribute to the capability of the team by the subject matter expertise that you have? So these are a variety of things which can be addressed, and depending upon the need of the group, yes, we pick a few, we change the challenges, and the framework remains the same of climbing Everest, but the challenges keep getting changed so that we can address the needs of the group. Where it can be used, yes, it can be applied in various ways. One is, of course, a collaboration tool. We have used it as a collaboration and leadership virtual outbound. We have used it as a pre-OD intervention tool, wherein before starting a 9-month-long OD intervention, we have started with this, which brought in a lot of ownership towards learning. It has been used prior to annual team offsites for more meaningful discussion aligned to business objectives during the offsite. It has also been used as a capstone activity after an intervention. So these are various ways which it has been used in. In fact, I have a friend in Singapore who is again a coach who was just sharing with me the other day that she's starting an OD intervention, and she was thinking of starting it off in a way where people own up to the learning. And that's where we decided, let's have this Mission Everest attached to the OD intervention. So she has a leadership program in place, and now this simulation is going to get attached to it so that it becomes a complete program. So this is how it can be used in various ways. That's the flexibility of the framework of the simulation. And yes, with this, we come to the end of the presentation. But before we close, I would like to take you on a super quick speed climb to the top of Everest. And yes, you will be taken from the Everest base camp to the summit. Somebody said, I want to see the view from the top. You will see the view from the top, the real view from the top in this video. Sitting in your home, you'll be at 29,000 feet without risking your lives. So let's have a look at this 2-minute video, and then the floor is open for questions. But first, let's climb our Everest together.
Lunch at camp 1 and 1 avalanche after the other. This one is almost approaching camp
1. So as we reach the top of Everest, now the floor is open to you. We would be glad to answer any questions related to the simulation, about Everest, about Himalayas, anything. Thank you. Thanks a lot for being there with us all through the climb.
Thank you very, very much. I'm still chilly. I need to heat up some coffee. There was one question in the chat. Maybe there are more now, but it was from Sylvia. And Sylvia, would you like to go off of mute and just ask it?
Yes, thank you so much. And this was really fascinating, and love the visuals. It really helps us understand how this works. I think you sort of answered it as you went along, but I wondered if the games, the challenges themselves could be modified. They could be changed, sort of customized to the group that was involved.
Yes, so they can be modified. So I'll give you an example, like when we did it for the Peace Corps Jamaica team, that was a time when a leadership transition was happening. And so we had the challenge modified for that, to give them an experience that, okay, when the leader changes, how do you adapt to the new needs? How does the leader adapt? How does the team adapt? So yes, it's a very flexible framework. As I said, you can modify the challenges on the way.
Thank you.
So could I add, I'd like to add something there. the reality is that the simulation is like a framework, a scaffolding. When we're talking about if we were modifying this to be more around kind of a cross-cultural experience, it would be how people that might be in these teams are different and how they relate to one another. And it's really all about how do they relate, how do they make decisions, how do they communicate. The mountain is the metaphor to get up there, just like, it could be something else. So it is flexible, but it oftentimes has to do with how are we setting it up? What are the aims, the goals, the objectives, and how are we debriefing it? So getting at what were some of your bias, some of your fears? And it may have been my fear of engaging somebody that was different than me and talking with them and working with them on a team. Geez, I've never done that. So there's a lot that kind of comes up with as we debrief some of these that may yield some gold that people hadn't thought about, may have been in their blind side. So the fact is, I always think about when you're debriefing this, not only what did you learn about teamwork, what did you learn about going up the mountain, what did you truly learn about yourself as it relates to culture or diversity, working with people that could be different than you, communicate differently, maybe have a different language, whatever it might be. So that's where, for me, that's where, as a facilitator, that's where the real gold is in having a compelling simulation like this is, create some real energy for people thinking about, geez, we really got to do this because we're really into this. We got to get up the mountain and get down safely.
I just ask a follow-up question when it comes then to this type of adaptation of the exercises. To what extent is the quote unquote client, the group, then involved in the design, the debrief, the facilitation?
Yes. So depending upon the group, the facilitators also change because, like, I can see a few questions coming in the chat also. Have you done it with undergrad students? So depending upon the group being handled, the facilitators change, the challenges change because the difficulty level has to be accordingly. The final learnings that they gain out of it, if we are doing it for students, it's a completely different kind of learning that they need to gain out of it. And if you're doing it for the corporate world, again, it's different. So that's how we adapt to it. So yes, the people, the facilitators do change.
So there are a couple of questions. I think one of you answered the one from Cassie about, do they include someone who gets sick and cannot continue or needs a 2-day delay? Was that your response about the medical expert? Did somebody want to, Ami, or why don't you just answer, is that one of the challenges? That's certainly what happens up in the high altitudes.
Yes, so I just answered that question for her, that we do have a challenge related to the health and where the medicine expert role is involved. Yeah, of course, it's a little different than what it was asked in the chat. There is no delay in the hike, but yes, it involves the expertise of the medicine expert.
Okay. And how do you get trained as a facilitator and how much does it cost? That's from one of the questions.
Okay, we would be glad to share about the cost. So we would share it with Sandy and Caroline. Would that be fine if we share more details with you, Caroline, later about how it works when it comes to costing? Because for different durations, it works differently. So we have had longer interventions also around this. When customization happens, here's the cost again changes. We have a standard format. We call it Gear Up, Rise, and Summit. So there are 3 models to the simulation. So depending on that, so I would surely share those details. About training the facilitators, yes, we have a trainers, when trainers join us, or they want to become facilitators, they go through a detailed process of understanding the simulation, how the scoring happens, how the debrief happens, what are the instructions, because this is a simulation which has a lot of variety of challenges. It is not a simulation where you go into round after round and the same challenge keeps getting repeated, but your responses change. Every stage has a different challenge. And so the facilitators, beyond facilitation, they also need to be a little familiar with the mountains. So in fact, we make them a little aware because they need to come across as mountaineers. So we know what are crampons, we know what is an ice axe, where do you use it, what are jumars, and that makes the entire feel of the simulation more authentic. So yes, there is a training process for trainers also, which they undergo. And to add to what Ami said, yes, when it comes to health challenges, there are challenges which may not delay the hike, but which may send a team member back to the base camp. And that is a loss because you have not taken care of the health of a team member. But yes, as I said, it is flexible. Depending upon the need, we may also integrate a delay in the climb. Somebody asked a question in the chat about what if we want to do it in a physical format. We just 3 months back, we took a group of climbers on an Everest climb in a physical event in Dubai. So it was a very different thing. You are sitting in Dubai in a conference hall and you're climbing Everest with the videos being projected. So yes, we now have a physical format of the simulation as well.
I think the questions have been answered, but if I missed one or you have one, just go off of mic. You can.
Carolyn, I have one. This is Cheryl. Because I have to get off the call real quick here. Himani, I have a question. Sandy and I were chatting kind of offline. From the beginning of the simulation to the end, from the preparation, the simulation and the debrief, how long does that, what's the time frame?
So the total time frame is, if we see, we have a 1 hour preparatory meet, a 3-hour simulation and a 3-hour debrief session. Now, how do we want to space it out? That depends on the group who are taking it up. So we have done it with groups over 3 days, wherein day 1 is the preparatory meet, day 2 is the simulation, and day 3 is the debrief. We have even spread it over a longer time if they want more preparatory time. So, so I would say over 3 to 5 days is what we can do this.
So it's not possible to do it in one day?
It is possible. It is possible. We have done it in 1 day as well. I would still say the preparatory meet should happen before. So that is a 1 hour interaction. But on the same day, the only thing is the screen time. You'll have 6 hours of screen time. So we have done it with a group wherein we had 3 hours in the morning. Then we gave them a long 2-hour break. And then we again had a 3-hour debrief session.
Okay. And so, if you were to do it in 2 days, how would you do it?
So in 2 days, yes, today I have a 3-hour session. And then tomorrow I have the debrief 3-hour session.
Okay. And then another question would be, if you weren't doing this for one, like, let's say one corporation or one organization, if it was a mixed group, like, okay, let me just throw it out there. We were thinking if we were to do this as a CTAR Saturday seminar, we're all coming from different places. Does it work in that kind of a format?
Absolutely. I think so. Chuck can add to that because we have done quite a few in the US. The one which he talked about, the outward bound team, and so we had a mixed group. Chuck, you can just add to it.
We did. The important thing was that we formed all the teams ahead of time. And the reason for the preparation is so that they clearly understand what their role is, so that they have a really good, legitimate experience. So that's what the preparation kind of is about, to really get them into their role. So they're clear when they get to the challenges and can work with other people. They would have individual knowledge that other people might not have that would come into play throughout the different course going up the mountain at the different camps that they would be at. So, we can form teams in any way we would like, but we'd like to make sure that we get together, and we always look to have max mix groups. So men and women, people from different countries, different ethnic groups, whatever it might be, whatever we have, we try to get max mix so that they see things from different perspectives when they're in this group and dealing with the challenges kind of going up the mountain. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Marty. Thank you.
I have a question too. I understand that there are 6 people on a team because there are 6 roles. So when you have many more people than 6, do you do it in breakout rooms? So you have one team of 6 in one breakout room and another one, another, or do you have like 3 people who are the medical people, 3 people who are the weather people? I mean, how do you solve that issue?
So as I said, 6 members in one team. We have also had 8 at times. We have also had 4. So depending upon the group size. But yes, it's not 3 medicine men coming together. It's about the entire team. So when we have breakout rooms, in a breakout room, there will be one oxygen expert, one weather expert, one acclimatization expert. So different experts, diverse expertise coming together in one team. So there are 4 teams, independent teams, and each team has 6 different experts. So at times, let's say we have more than 6 people in a team. If we have 8 people in a team, then there are certain roles which are more complicated. We have 2 team members playing the same role. So then they also have their sharing of thoughts. We have had teams where we had, say, around 12 participants to all. And then we have had 3 teams of 4 members each, and then one person handling multiple roles. Because we have had situations where people have registered for the simulation, and a day before, in the current scenario, somebody tests positive, COVID positive, and they say we are dropping out. And this is exactly what happens in real life also. We have to pitch in for our team members and take up additional roles. So we have seen members taking up additional roles.
Yeah.
Very flexible. I like that.
Yeah.
I think Debbie had a question.
I do. I'm really excited about this, for problem solving, just communication, just a lot of things.
Yeah.
My question is, for each team, will there be a specific intention, a specific purpose, or is it just going to go according to those roles that you mentioned earlier?
So Debbie, let me answer that briefly, and then maybe Hamini and Ami might jump in. But one of the things you can do that's powerful here is, if you really were focusing on teamwork or, people from the same organization, you could have them spend a little bit of time with even creating their norms. How do we relate to one another? How are we going to work together? And you give them some individual kind of pre-work or coming up. What is your objective? Not just what the simulation's objective is. You could even have an organization that's dealing with some gender bias in their organization, and you could say, hey, you're going to have a leader in this group, and it's going to be a woman. And let's see how you do with that. So you could, there's a lot of things that you could do to set this up in order to have them get something different out of it, and you could debrief them around that. You could go back to the norms that they created or their objective that you said you were going to accomplish as a result of doing this together. Did you do this? To what degree did you do it? And you know how the debrief goes. What'd you do well? If you had to do it again, what would you do differently? Those kind of things. So that's where it can become really, really, quite powerful when you do something that is, kind of a little bit, out of just chatting about it or talking about it or problem solving. They get to demonstrate. They get to take responsibility. They can hold each other accountable and themselves. So the debrief can become, even, I could even see the debrief for me. I think sometimes when people sleep on some of this kind of stuff, they wake up the next day, they have aha moments. I have those aha moments. And so if you're working with a group, running them through this and then debriefing them over time, I think can be incredibly powerful. And they integrate. The thing that's beautiful about a simulation and this, much of what they're doing, because they're doing it, is integrated into how they operate. And oftentimes they forget that, but it becomes part of how they relate, and it becomes more a part of who they are as it relates to other people.
Thank you, Chuck, because we are now seeing, maybe it's because of COVID-19. I don't know, but we need to do something different. What we've been doing in the past, believe me, it's not working. So maybe we could try this. So thank you very much, Chuck.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions? This has been absolutely wonderful.
I
Very
was just curious how long it takes to become a facilitator, like what kind of a time commitment is involved with that before you close out?
So the question was to be trained as a facilitator. How long does that take, or what is that about?
So the thing is, okay, I will even share what would be the process to actually get trained, because when a new facilitator gets trained in this, first thing is we give a manual to go through. There are a few sessions where the facilitator is co-facilitating. I would say that facilitator would be a shadow facilitator and will be attached to, because normally if we have 4 teams in the simulation, we will have 4 facilitators. And so the new facilitator is a shadow facilitator who gets to observe how the simulation runs. And after that, then we give pieces to facilitate. And that's also, it's a process. So the facilitator goes through a training session and then co-facilitates with us for a few sessions to finally become a core facilitator for that. So I would say the expedition leader for the virtual climb.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing to add there, Sylvie, is, like if you had a group of people that you had been working with as a facilitator, as a coach, and you wanted to have them have this experience, certainly to facilitate, at the end, at least, what did they get out of it? It can always be co-facilitated with that part of it, because you have facilitation skills. You're working with a group, they trust you. So being part of debriefing in a facilitative way, I think we could do something like that if that was what you're, I don't know if that was part of your question, but thinking about people that.
In fact, like very rightly said, Chuck, the way we did for the Peace Corps team. So over there, the simulation was facilitated by me, Ami, and our team, but the debriefing was done by Chuck because he connects better with the team. So yes, that's how the simulation can be used, wherein the technicalities are handled by us, but the debriefing is handled by the facilitator who knows the team better than us.
Yeah.
So yes, this is one way of doing it.
And
that was exactly my thought. Thank you, Chuck, for clarifying that. So yeah, I think it works when you have clients and groups that you want to engage in this, maybe do some of the prep work with them. And obviously the debrief would play a key role in knowing the organization and meeting the objectives. So makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm excited. I want to get some intel. Send us the information, pricing, all of that.
Yeah. Well, I think we've set up a relationship and you will be hearing, you may not have understood, but Cheryl, who has had to go off, she's the director of professional development for our group. And so that was why she was posing that question, because that is under her umbrella, as these webinars are as well. So I think you can anticipate hearing from her and hearing from other members. we can post any contact information as well. So let's continue the conversation and maybe meet at base camp to get up to the summit.